Hi there, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at a sort of educational topic, I guess, which is interesting. I'm not taking the piss out of somebody. But what we're looking at is the two main types of coating flash, which is either the oil slick, where it looks like purpley, colorful smearing, like kind of like oil and water. That's what people refer to as the oil slick, or the beading style, where it goes from a liquid and then it shrinks into little droplets and it just looks like a whole bunch of little water beads in little lines and patterns depending on how you're wiping it. And sort of what that looks like, some things that can help you when you are applying a coating with one of those two attributes, and how you can make your life easier. Specifically with the type of lighting you use. Now, this is a swirl finding light, and what I have done as a temporary sort of diffuser is put Scotch tape over the lens, but as you'll see, it is not as good as a properly diffused light. So if you are going to use coatings that are oil slick style flashing, it would be worthwhile to invest in a light, specifically like a diffused style, preferably bigger than this. However, I don't have the room in this garage. You know, it's 10 feet wide. So portability, like these things in this guy, are easier for me. And the lighting I have in the ceiling, there's 3 main lights. They are fully diffused LED fluorescent style lighting, with a few more on this rack for various types. It's a mishmash of lighting in here. Swirl finder light I use for swirls, and then coatings. If I can't see it with the roof lights, I'll bring this guy around, or I'll use my little tape job here to just sort of do a spot check. You can kind of get it, but you'll see later that it isn't that easy. Now, personally, I like the beading style because you can see it with any light, and we'll get into that next. But these two coatings are being applied to a test panel. The panel was polished, panel wiped, prepped like you would do a coating job. I will, little asterisk here, I filmed that first and filming this second. Because it is a test panel, the amount I initially put on the applicators was way too much. So the Phobic was okay. It still will do it. It just, instead of it being 30 to 60 seconds, it's 2 to 3 minutes to flash. And the tack system, I could barely get it to flash. So I actually wiped the tack system off and reapplied it with much less. So another tip for you, less product. Get just enough to get the coverage of your area. If you're finding that you have too much, you can maybe try stretching the area you're working in. But especially, like, I'm using just small little cotton applicators because, again, I'm just using a test panel. There's no point wrecking a real applicator for this purpose. It does do the job. It does work. You just got to watch your quantities. So oil, like the more you put on, the longer it will take to cure in a given consistent temperature. It's around 21 degrees Celsius in here right now. It's been warmer lately. So I'm sweaty, and the flash times were a little wonky, but I will do some editing magic to sort of show you the application and then sort of get to the meat and potatoes of what it is you're gonna see. So let's get to that. All right, so here's the panel. We will be using ADS Phobic on this side and Tack System Moonlight V2 on this side. I have the applicator primed. Basically, this side is where you're going to see your oil slick. So you'll see the colorful lines like oil and water sort of look. The ADS side is where you're going to see your beading. So we're going to put the tack on first because it has a longer setup time. It is currently 20.4 degrees and 41% humidity in the car hole. So my cure times should be pretty quick. I don't know the exact rules regarding humidity, but it is warm, so they should evaporate, especially with the low humidity. And again, this is hard to do a small section, so I am applying way too much. You should be able to see right here, this type of lighting will show you oil slick, and I've got the actual light ready to go, but that's on there at about 1:15 into recording this. Get Phobic. I'm not spraying Phobic, I'm just going to do a dunk, a tip, because I'm going to save my triggers. I made roughly the same size. It has a smaller opening than considering how big the bottle is, but we'll get out the light in a second and have a look at that. But you should see Phobic without much light assistance. That is the nice thing about sweating or beading type coatings. They are very easy to tell when they're done. 30 to 60 seconds for this guy, so tack is coming up to right around a minute soon enough. And so probably, hopefully, when one is done, the other will be too. But again, I'm putting it on thick, so that will slow things down. And I'm putting it on thick because I'm using a weird applicator with way too much product on a small panel. So again, all things you need to consider. Panel was prepped, if I haven't already said so, using McGuire's polish. It was polished and panel wiped, so it is well prepped for this. So any issues that could potentially arise from not prepping it properly are not going to arise. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the beading effect for Phobic. These little beads are all that you want to see. Actually, that light works pretty good. Sorry, it's very hard to film this. That's what you're looking for. That means it's ready to wipe. Little lines, little rows, whichever direction you feel like, but that's it. That's all you need from a beading coating, and it's very easy to see. The lighting I had overhead was just really hard to film using a secondary light. So that's what you're looking for with a beading coating. Now, let's go have a gander at an oil slick coating. Okay, so tack system is finally starting to slick up. Again, I had to wipe off a bit of excess because it's just way too much for this much of panel, and the more you put on, the longer everything will take. So see, with this diffused light, see those lines? It's more obvious in person, but again, trying to get it captured. But those lines, that is your oil slick. Now notice how you can see them. And again, if I take it away, sort of move the camera around, you can't see them. But when I put this back, there they are. Now, even with my homemade diffuser, which in some situations just kind of sucks, you can't see them that well. They're a little bit, you can just barely see them. Even in person, I can't really see them. But when I put this back, you can see them. So when you're using an oil slick type coating, you really want some kind of diffused light. Again, not something this small, which is the size of my hand, actually not even, but big diffused lights. If you've got ceiling lights, any big white area that you can light up consistently and evenly like this is what you want, because that's how you see your oil slick. So that's what you want to do, that's what you're looking for, and that's how you see it. You don't use pinpoint lights to see oil slicks type coatings. They'll show you beading coatings, no problem, but they will not show you this. They will not show you the oil slick. So this is what you want to do. So anyway, let's wrap this up. Okay, so pretty clear. One thing I'll state is moonlight is not, there's levels to this when it comes to the oil slick. Some are more obvious than others. Some are they look like they're doing it as soon as you apply it. They're very, very obvious. In those instances, I think the best way to go about it is once you start to see it sort of reduce. Once you're looking, the oil slick is basically the evaporation of the solvent. So once the amount of liquid on the panel starts to reduce and you see that slickness, that's a good time to wipe. And typically every car, every day is going to be slightly different. So you're best off just working on a test spot in conspicuous area. If something goes wrong, you can panel wipe it or polish it if you're going to go that far, and restart it. But you'll want to get a feel on one panel, and typically, especially if you're working indoors, which you really should for most coatings. Some you can get away with, but most of them you want to be indoors. Once you got one panel sorted and your time's set, unless there's a massive temperature change, you don't really need to do a whole bunch of double checking. A little spot check here and there, but once you know it's a minute and a half, 2 minutes, or 30 seconds to wipe off, just stick within that time frame, sort of stick with that pattern and space out as you go. As you can see though, the beading one is so much easier to spot, and is like, this Phobic is super, super nice to apply when you don't apply too much of it. It's very slick on the wipe off. Tack System was a much slicker, because I had to wipe it off and just reapply it right away. It was much slicker, obviously, when you use less of it. And that could be another thing that affects, your experience applying a coating. But Phobic is super slick, and those beading features it has, which a couple other coatings do, like some of the Cerakote's, Cerakote's coating does it, I think maybe some Geon, don't quote me. But it is so much easier to see. You don't need to get, specific lighting for it per se. And this, just in this instance, this particular coating flashes faster. When I applied it for a detail I did a week ago or so, it took 30 seconds to a minute tops to flash. So very, very easy to use, and just easier to use in the sense of the style, not just the particular product. So for me, I prefer that. Obviously, if I have a coating, I've got a lot of full bottles of coatings that do the oil slick, which I will have to get through in some way. But the beading style is much nicer to sort of observe. And so far, the two coatings that I've used that do that have been very slick on the wipe off. One being Cerakote, one being this. So I don't know if there's a correlation there or not, but yeah. So when it comes to oil slick, get diffused lighting. When it comes to beading style, just make sure you're applying it as thin as you need to. Don't over apply it. Same with the other one. The more you apply, the longer that will take, the longer it will take to coat the car, and the more laborsome it will be to remove the product. So that's that. That's the end of this guy. Educational piece, I guess you could say. But I had these out and I had it at a spare test panel. I was like, you know what? Let's see if we can just make a video showing this for the people that don't know. But there's more coming. There are 4 more products are ready for, not ready, they've been applied for ranked. And probably this same panel, I am going to be testing a very controversial product from a very controversial, well, used to be a controversial brand. We don't know yet about this one, but the viewer sent it in, and I'm